Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and it's time for another super high level match of Protoss versus Zerg. And what I got for you today is a match right here on Backwater LE. Spawning in the top left hand corner of the map and playing with the blue Zerg drones, we have none other than Serral. Widely considered to be the best non-Korean player right now in StarCraft 2, and actually over like the last, I would say like 2 to 3 months or so, he's been at rank 1 on Aligulek. Now obviously Aligulek is just simply a statistics website. It keeps track of all of the tournament games that are being played in professional StarCraft 2, and it's definitely not painting the full picture, but there's no denying that Serral right now is very, very good. Obviously there's players like Scarlet, there are players like, for example, Special, who have been doing very great things so far in 2018 as well, but Serral most definitely does have a lot of momentum behind him right now. And his opponent, spawning in the opposite corner, one of the better Protoss players out of South Korea, he goes by the nickname of Trap. Now, Trap is one of those players who can easily be overshadowed by, for example, right now in StarCraft 2, we have guys like, for example, SOS, like Classic, like Zest, who have just been dominating the Protoss scene. But Trap, he's always been around, he's always been a very powerful Protoss player, so I'm curious to see what he's going to be going for in this particular match. It's actually pretty interesting. For the longest time, Korean players wouldn't really give any respect to non-Korean players when it came to the games that they would play. Apparently for a while even, and several pro gamers from South Korea have mentioned this in interviews, that if you were a Korean player and you would lose against someone who wasn't from Korea, pro gamers would actually make fun of you. Now the tides have most definitely turned since then, but in particular back in like the Brood War days and whatnot, it was pretty much unheard of for a non-Korean player to win any matches whatsoever against someone from Korea, just because, you know, the practice schedules and whatnot of a lot of these pro gamers were just absolutely ridiculous. But these days, non-Korean players have most definitely caught up. In particular, the ones that I just mentioned, they are getting awfully close to being one of the top-level contenders in StarCraft 2 already. I wonder what that means with like the future in mind, right? I mean, it took a while for players outside of Korea to figure out exactly what the best practice schedules and whatnot are. I mean, for example, for a long time, the rumor was going around that guys like Flash in StarCraft 1 were practicing 14 hours a day. No weekends, no nothing, just literally sleeping, playing, working out, sleeping, playing, working out, and that's about the schedule. Just to make sure you get very, very good. Anyway. We do see that quick Stargate opener right here for Trap. He's going to be, of course, going for that quick Nexus here on the low ground. And just because we are on Backwater and you get this really easy third base expansion, I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to take this one here in just a little bit as well. We see that very quick Phoenix right now as well. A single probe actually moving out now too. I think this one is just going to hold to the watchtower for now. See if anything cheeky is going on here for the Zerg. But Serral, in the meantime, he's already taken his own third hatchery here. And he's got a handful of Zerglings out with link speed just about to finish up. Overlord right now will confirm indeed exactly what it is that Serral's going up against. I actually really like this from Protoss players. For the longest time, Oracle openers were the gold standard. Then players once again started going Phoenixes after going for an Oracle or two. But now some players have actually started going for Phoenixes and then transitioned towards Oracles. Because technically speaking, against a single Phoenix, you don't really need your Spore Crawlers nearly as quickly. So some Zerg players will actually get a little bit greedy. Just skip those spores altogether. Apparently Serral, though, this time around is not going to do that. But some players will indeed get greedy, and then the Oracle swoops in and kills like 8-9 drones. And that can easily be the end of the game. Lair now also being constructed here for Serral, and it does look like with a pylon already going up here at the third base location, that Trap will be looking to take that one very, very shortly. More Queens now actually already awaiting the arrival of a Stargate unit. Nothing showing up just yet, but the Spore Crawler will finish up in just a little bit. And while apparently the units right there were in the main base, nothing critical has gone down at this point in the game. Now, both of these players are very capable of playing a long, drawn-out macro game. I'm actually secretly hoping that that is going to be the case, because both of them have actually been playing rather careful so far. And only 5 minutes or so have gone by. But as far as build orders and whatnot go, this is pretty much as safe as can be. I mean, we see a very quick save spore crawler. I actually really like this decision right here, although one of the oracles does end up dying. But I really like this decision here for the Zerg player. Serral has been known sometimes to skip out both the Baling Nest as well as the Roach Warren against Stargate-based openers. I've seen him lose a handful of games exactly like that in professional tournaments, where he just doesn't really go for any kind of defense in the early game, and then a couple of Adepts swoop in after the Oracle, and all of a sudden his mineral line is dead. This time around, Serral not being greedy, just simply going into the Baling Nest, lair at a correct timing as well, and now following it up with that Grooved Spines upgrade that gives the Hydralisk a little bit more ranged. Third Nexus, about 2/3 or so of the way done right now. We see a Templar Archive switch here, as well as a couple of additional gateways, and a Forge here for our Protoss player. So really, both players are just simply sitting back, and that means that I get to take a sip of my tea. As some of you have already noticed, I've had a bit of a cold for a couple of days right now. Although finally, slept like a baby, finally, my voice is once again starting to sound relatively normal. Although still a little bit, still a little bit of stuffed, I suppose, but it's alright. Centrifugal hooks, now also being researched here for Serral. So he's going to be going for that Hydraling Bane style. Whereas Trap, he's likely going to be going for that Immortal Archon, High Templar, Zealot-based army that a lot of Protoss players have been favoring. Usually, by the time we see a Protoss player taking a 4th base, they will also be transitioning to watch a Stargate-based army, and we all know how difficult it is to beat a maxed-out Stargate-based army. And if there is any map where you can try to pull that off, it's definitely Backwater. So here come the Warp Prism. Oh man, I love this. Going for a big storm drop immediately, killing 6 of those drones. I know some Brood War players just got very excited there. High Templar drops are becoming more and more common in StarCraft 2 with the speed, of course, of those Warp Prisms and the fact that units regenerate both shields as well as energy while inside of that Warp Prism. You can do an insane amount of micro just by simply having that one hanging out in the corner, and as soon as the Zerg player is occupied, you drop them down, quickly storm the mineral line, and if they're not paying attention, right at that very second, the mineral line will be dead. Hive coming up right now for Zerg. We see that Spire also being constructed, so Serral is going to be transitioning to watch the Greater Spire as soon as that Hive will finish up. Trap right now posturing, not actually going for any kind of 3-base push here either, just simply immediately going into that 4th Nexus. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually going to be adding on, for example, additional Stargates here in just a little bit. Of course, High Templar, Archon, Immortals, and whatnot, they transition very nicely as well to watch the Stargate-based army, just because it's a very, very powerful force to deal with. Although +1 as well as Charge are just about to finish up, we may very well see a bit of a move out here from Trap in just a little bit. A single Adept right there was destined for some scouting information, but Serral is not going to show this base. Warp Prism once again is moving, but look at that response time by Serral. This is what makes him so great. So Serral, he's been very well known for just his macro-based styles. A lot of players have mentioned that trying to deal any kind of damage to Serral in the early game is pretty much impossible, because he's going to be on top of that, and it's little moves like that that can absolutely change the tide of battle. Although if you're occupied and you're looking at your Zerglings, the High Templar will swoop in. They just simply flew all the way around in that Warp Prism, arrived from the other angle, the Hydras weren't paying attention, and 9 drones went down in just a second. Then again though, at this point in the game, I mean, we've already got such a big economy here for Zerg that, sure, losing 9 drones, it's not nice, it's not perfect, but it's not nearly as detrimental as it would have been a couple of minutes ago. Trap now posturing to do a little bit of a push out, a Zealot having a bit of a stare off right there against the Zergling, although it can only really see its butt. Its butt sticking out from the bush. Apparently that one is gonna be taken care of though, as Zerglings swoop in, and they will be capable of cleaning this one up, preventing the Zergling with the butt out from dying. And we're actually setting ourselves up for a very heavy macro game. I mean, neither player really dealing any kind of critical damage just yet. Neither player committing to any kind of push, and that's really the layout of this map. A lot of players don't like these kind of maps. I'm personally a big fan. I always feel like the Supreme late game is extremely interesting to watch, although it's not my personal foray, but look at that once again. 5 additional workers going out, and Trap right now, he's got some excess minerals. He's gonna also warp in a handful of Zealots. Brute Lords already being morphed in right now as well for our Protoss player. couple of the Zealots will be picked up. The Archon apparently has to pay for the shenanigans with its life. The 2 High Templar in death will be merged together though, so I guess that's kind of the best scenario you can be in if you are indeed going to be a Protoss High Templar. Stargates now actually starting already with their Tempest production. Very interesting. Tempest, very strong units. Usually though, they're really only made for a counter against Brute Lords. Now we see a lot of Protoss players committing to a push before Brute Lords can really come out. Instead, Trap decided to go for the quicker Stargates. He decided to go for some very quick upgrades here as well in the Cybernetics core. And while he's once again going for a Warp Prism Warp in here, he's mostly just using this to buy a lot of time. And I love this. Usually the issue here is that if Zerg moves across the map with Brutes and you do not have your Tempest ready to go, your army as a Protoss just simply melts. Instead, I mean, Serral is going to try and go for that engagement. He will be met by a bunch of these Tempest. But yeah, just to come back to this map layout real quick, right? Wow, indeed, we do see that first big engagement just about to mount. This map just doesn't really allow for a very easy engagement into the natural and the 4th base and whatnot. So usually we do have some very long, drawn-out macro games. So while I'm personally not that great at the late-game Zerg pieces, as well as all of the other races, I feel more comfortable playing timing attack-based styles myself. There's no denying that it's very, very important. I love it whenever players have to, you know, micro like 17 different units at once. Now, once again, right, the Zealot Warp-ins are preventing this army from really moving out, and it looks like Serral has just simply decided that he wants to back off. A couple of Phoenixes now chasing down these Brute Lords as well. Usually Phoenixes are not the kind of unit to really deal that kind of damage, but the Tempest now also closing the distance, and they will be able to at the very least get rid of one of them. Serral now transitioning towards the Spore Crawlers. We really are setting ourselves up for a very tense game. I mean, Serral's been denying the economy here for the Protoss for a while, but Protoss is already up to 4 bases. Right? Trap has already got himself a massive economy. We see that that mothership now also being constructed. Creep is covering most of the map at this point as well, and Serral is just simply transitioning towards that hyper late game focused Zerg army. Right, we see a lot of these upgrades. Neuroparasite now also coming up here for our Zerg player. Brute Lords are being constructed. Even +3 melee is gonna be finishing up here in just a little bit. Another Spire now coming up here for Serral, so he plans on double upgrading his air-based army. It's actually gonna get really sick really fast. Because this Protoss army, it's menacing. Carriers are now also on that production tab. There's a couple of these Void Rays out as well. This is a very difficult army to micro if you are a Protoss player. High Templar though, or rather Hydralisk though, they're gonna try and see if they can deal some damage. They will be able to, at the very least, buy some time for those Banelings to roll into the mineral line, but the Hydras will be backing off for now. Although, not without taking care of a couple of these air units as well. Nicely done. You actually have to be careful though, can't just lose these Hydralisk. Once again, a couple of these air units will take some damage, but I don't think that was a worthwhile trade here for the Zerg. But look at the bank already, right? In particular for Trap. Players are already starting to get a lot of resources. Now this is something that Zerg players have once again been doing. If you've not watched StarCraft 2 for the last couple of years, and actually Banelings once again trying to see if they can get an angle here. Dark Templar now being warped in defensively, I love it. But we've seen a lot of Zerg players focusing on that very, very heavy Spore Crawler based style. Spore Crawlers, of course, not only are they gonna deal a lot of damage if army units do engage on top of them, they also really zone away a lot of this Protoss army, because it's very difficult to engage into that if you're a Protoss. I mean, are you just gonna push forward? More than likely you're not. Immortal now even being sacrificed together with the Dark Templar here as well as the Zealot. They're gonna try and see if they can potentially clean up a base, but it looks like this party will have to wait for a little while longer, as all of these units do end up dying. Looks like Trap is using this moment though to try and see if we can go for a bit of a push here towards the northern side of the map. Brute Lords now once again trying to move forward, but there are enough Tempest out right at this point in the game to just simply one-shot them. Very nicely done here so far by Trap, just simply posturing, but also by Serral for keeping that base alive. A lot of upgrades are finishing up right now. We see the same for the Protoss player. Now even going for the triple cybernetics core, just to secure that these upgrades will be going up and finishing up at this point in the game. The one at the front, of course, is going to be a little bit vulnerable. I love that. Such a late game focused army. This is something that's mostly Like, it's discovered, but it's not like finalized just yet. And what I mean with that is that people and pro gamers and whatnot are still trying to figure out how exactly they should go ahead and play this kind of composition. So, from the Zerg's point of view, right, he ideally wants the Protoss player to engage right on top of all of these spore crawlers, as well as all of the other units, so he can go ahead and use the infestors for fungal growth, maybe even neural parasite, and of course the corruptors and the queens and whatnot for transfusion. I mean, it's gonna get really messy really fast. For the Protoss player, though, most of the time they are going to be trying to wait out and see if they can potentially force the Zerg player out of position. It's the positional game that really counts. So that's why we see these warp prisms and whatnot moving across the map, just to try and see if they can do some warp ins and then prevent the Zerg player from defending two angles at once, which opens up the opportunity for the mass Sky Terror or the Sky Protoss army to move towards one of the expansions. But Serral just continuously getting more drones. Look at this. How many spores is that? It's a ton of them already, and I think he's not done just yet. Here we go, though. The Zerg army. This is the kind of army that's just meant for run-bys. The Zerg army is going to try and now force this Protoss army out of position as well. Skytoss is going to be maxing out in just a little bit. We do see Trap now being under a little bit of pressure here on one of those cyber cores that he's constructed. Zerglings heading into the main base as well, but photon cannons in very tactical positions, as well as Dark Templar to prevent this from really dealing any kind of critical damage. And I don't know if you're feeling this as well, but I feel a little bit of tension building right now. Right? Neither player has really wanted to commit to a fight just yet. Now, we do know that bases are going to be running low on minerals. So at some point, players will be forced to contest for one of these outer expansions. And Trap is already taking one right here, and Serral is taking one here in the top right-hand corner. It's critical for both of these players that they get the resources from those bases. Because as far as banks go, neither of them actually have a lot of it. I mean, we do see a couple of thousand resources right now just simply sitting nice and pretty, but with the amount of bases taken so far at this point in the game, you wouldn't really expect that. Right? Instead, we see both players heavily focusing on upgrades. Look at that production template for Zerg. It's pretty much all upgrade. And likewise, actually, we see now disruptors coming out here for Trap. I did see him make the robotics bay. Not entirely sure what he's got in store for us with the disruptors. We'll have to keep an eye out on exactly what he wants to do with those. They do soak up quite a bit of supply at this point in the game, but Serral only, or rather Trap only really having 66 workers here. They're simply trying to be a bit of a nuisance here with the Dark Templar. I love it. There's actually no detection right now in the main base. Just focusing and forcing that Zerg attention to be split in several different angles at once. +3 immediately coming up here for the Zerg player. We see the same right here in a lot of these other upgrade stations. Serral will be finishing up his 3-3 upgrades, but neither player is really committing. And I have to say, as far as economy goes, right? Serral is actually allowing his opponent to just simply have this base as well. This is starting to be a little bit crazy, because at some point we know that these armies are going to have to clash. And that moment may very well be coming up here in just a little bit. Trap was moving forward there with the mothership. Don't forget about the fact that the mothership also has offensive recall. Wonderfully done right there by Trap once again, though, preventing that base from ever really getting started. And apparently the only thing that remains from that drone is gonna be... Oh, actually, the drone is burrowed. Oh, I love it. That was very quick clicking there by Serral. I was gonna say the only thing that remains is gonna be that mineral patch, but no. It's actually going to be that army. So neither player really actually maxing out on their endgame army just yet. Instead, they're just simply trying to be, maxing out on, say, like 190... 180-ish supply, so they can spend some of that supply as well to just simply make... Ooh, there's actually spores now being selected. Here we go. But they're also selecting some of that army to just simply warp in zealots and go for a lot of Zergling run-bys and Hydralisk and whatnot. Alright. So Trap, he's gonna be trapped. Pun intended. No, but seriously, Serral is currently trying to push his opponent into a corner. Now, obviously, this map doesn't really allow for any tight corners, but he's trying to push his opponent back. We see the Oracle just simply trying to figure out where this Zerg army is located. The Zerg army, somehow, some way, not really looking nearly as menacing here as that of the Protoss. Neuroparasite activated there on the Oracle. But I'm really curious to see how this game is gonna end. And actually, I think these disruptors are here to try and see if they can kill these spores. I think that's the reason why these disruptors are here. I think it's three disruptor hits to kill a spore. Queen's trying to now also put down some of that. Yeah, look at that. Oh my god, that's so cool. I love that. That's so sick. A couple of those queens, though, ended up taking a little bit of damage there. Both players just continuing onwards with that maxed out army. 3-3-3-3-3. All the upgrades just about to finish here. As an assimilation right there on top of the disruptor, but here we go. Both players trying to posture once again, making themselves look very menacing. It's like two animals trying to fight, you know? You gotta look really menacing before you commit to the engagement, so maybe your opponent will just simply back off. Eventually, though, if he's not gonna leave your territory, you're gonna have to fight him. Spore Crawler's now taking care of a couple of those interceptors. Nicely done there by Serral. Very patient, though, right? These are some extremely patient macro wars. Now, while this is going on, I haven't really been paying attention to the minimap, but of course, neither of these players are just doing one engagement, right? Are you kidding me? One engagement? No. What's the APM on average so far? Look at that, right? Both players actively pressing like 10 buttons a second here. Only one engagement? Get out of here, Lowko. Still, the patience is starting to become very, very, very scary. Usually, Zerg players struggle a lot at this point in the game. Serral has been known for his late game in the past. I know that he's very good at playing these kind of games. But there's no denying that once these Tempests get a good engagement off, they can absolutely demolish this army. Then again, we see now even Banelings being morphed in here for Serral. Then again, this Zerg army is nothing to be taken lightly. One misengagement for the Protoss and this could be game over. Once again, Disruptors being activated there. The Brutes will immediately be throwing their Brutelings forward as well, getting rid actually of 2 of those almost immediately, and they will be reconstructed instantaneously here as well for Trap. It's really, like, these armies are posturing, right, but the engagements are mostly about the ones in the corners of the map. Because this is where the mining bases are. This is where both players are going to be getting their resources. And while both of them are picking off a couple of units here and there, it's going to come down to the economy. Look at the bank here of Serral. Right? 10,000 resources deep already. Similarly for Trap, though, he's got a lot of gas, and gas is really the one limiting factor for a Protoss at this point in the game. The Terran music kicks in as well. We're watching a game of Protoss versus Zerg, and the Terran music kicks in. I swear that if I was a Terran player, by heart, I would probably just not play with my own music in game, just because, well, the Terran music is so sick. Is that just me? Both in StarCraft 1 as well as StarCraft 2, the Terran music is so good. But here we go. Assimilations, the neural parasites immediately going down on top of all of those carriers as well. The Brute Lords are trying to do some damage to whatever leftover ground army we see. And actually, now that the Tempest and the carriers are mostly under control here of the Zerg, all of a sudden we see this army absolutely being massacred. Trap engaging on top of a lot of those Spore Crawlers as well. The Mothership will be killed here. Oh, actually, no, it just barely survives. Apparently, though, a lot of this Protoss army will end up dying. And all of a sudden, Serral takes a oh, man, that's actually such a sick lead here, all of a sudden here, for our Zerg player. Once again, though, the Disruptors are going to engage here as well, trying to see if they can blow up a couple of those units. We now see the Ultralisk switch here coming up as well for the Zerg player. Infestors constructed now as well. Once again, those neural parasites were absolutely on point to simply controlling part of that Zerg army. At the same time, though, the High Templar ended up falling there to the might of all of those Brute Lords. And here come the reinforcements. A ton more Corruptors now came out from the corners of the map as well. Ultralisk are gonna spawn here in just a second, but still, the mining here for Trap is absolutely off the charts. Trap knows it as well, immediately gonna start constructing a couple of those Immortals as well. He's gonna go for the Blink Stalker upgrade, as well as a ton of additional Archon. He still does have a very, very menacing carrier-based army, but here comes Zerg once again, forcing the mass recall on all of those carriers. The Brute Lords once again trying to see if they can push forward, going after one of the last mining bases here for Trap. This one, though, not nearly as critical, but it's mostly a positional play right now here for our Zerg player. Ultralisk are coming out, but Immortals and Archons are very good at dealing with these units as well. The carriers are starting to be pushed back into a corner as well, and actually there's not really that many left over anymore at this point in the game either. Brood Lords trying to see if they can deal some damage. At the same time, a single one of the Oracle apparently did decide to go to the top right-hand corner, although Burrow was used effectively right there to prevent this Zerg army from dying. Ultras and Hydra is going to try and see if they can go after another one of the mining bases here of the Protoss player. And this is starting to actually look like a game where Serral has just been outpatienting, right, his opponent. That engagement was absolutely insane. Then again, though, the amount of neuroparasites there were absolutely critical. I think that once again, we will see the neuroparasites coming up here on all of those Archons. All of a sudden, that Protoss army is no longer fighting here for the Kala. Instead, they're gonna go after as many of those of their brethren as they possibly can. Burrow being activated as well. And of course, with this many spore crawlers nearby, it is very difficult to get your observers in position because they just simply get picked off so very quickly. 30 probes there ended up dying as well to the Ultralisk, and then all of the Zerglings as well. Base in the bottom left-hand corner also did end up getting denied there by that Zerg army. Still, the Archon Immortal Ball, though, so very menacing. They're going to be able to plow through all of those Ultralisks in just a matter of seconds. A lot of Corruptors are left over, but really not that many air units here remain for our Protoss player. And I actually think that maybe Serral has just barely overextended, as he is going to be forced back now, and a lot of these Spore Crawlers will end up dying here as well. Supply-wise, though, it is 198 supply here for our Zerg player versus only 60-ish for the Protoss. Zerglings now coming out with the reinforcements. The Infestors going for a bit of a Zerg force field there, preventing this army from retreating. It's really the Infestors that have been shining in this game as Serral obtains the victory in an extremely well-fought game. My god, that actually got so intense there near the ending. That is so sick. I love that. Such a sick matchup right there by Serral. I mean, it's extremely passive, right? But for the longest time, we've been seeing Protoss players just simply maxing out and then attacking, moving through the middle of the map when maxed out on their Stargate-based army. Serral giving us a masterclass on how to deal with a maxed out Protoss army. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile or write a special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. But I'll see you in the next one.